welcome to the Wild Wild West podcast. My name is Richie Richie, and yes, your eyes are working correctly. We are 2 men short tonight. The Raiders and the Chiefs. That is unfortunate, but we will do our best to cover their schedule release ourselves. Unfortunately, right now, our Raiders compadres were not able to make it directly live, but we are going to see if maybe they might be able to join us a little bit later, get their direct insight as to their schedule. For those who are joining us from the Raiders, if there is someone who might want to join us live on the show, on the podcast, a bit of a new thing for us, please reach out. And I will get you a DM on Twitter to get you the link to get into the show, and we can go from there. That'll be kind of fun to have a new guest perhaps on the show to discuss the schedule and everything else. And Monsieur Givens will be joining us shortly, hopefully, if he can. He's just got a pressing function that he had to attend to that he couldn't escape from early enough to come onto the show. But he will do his very best to join us live via that event from his phone if he can. So he's really trying to go the extra mile to get his insight for his Kansas City Chiefs. With that in mind, Robert, how are you today?
Doing good, sir. Doing good. It's schedule release day. It's another great day in the NFL cycle.
I will say that I personally wish that they released the schedule officially just a little bit earlier.
I agree.
I wish that they kind of released it. So I'm Eastern Standard. I know you're on the West Coast, but if I were to kind of convert this and whatnot, I'd love to have it come out around, let's say kind of like, I guess it'd be like 1 p.m. or 2 p.m. my time. So that'd be kind of like, 11:30 or so your time. I think you're on the West Coast, right? So
yes, sir.
So I'm thinking something like that'd be great, because then you could really get the kind of the juices flowing. You can really take some time to absorb the information. Now, here's the deal, though. Broncos schedule's already been leaked, and I've had plenty of time to review it. So I don't really care about you, my man. I am good to go. It is unfortunate that the Chargers schedule, as far as I can tell, has not been fully leaked.
Yes.
Just real quick before we get into that a little bit more, I do want to give a huge shout out to all of those that are commenting and joining us live. D-Rock, great to see you again. Keep tuning in live. We're going to go into some really, really interesting content here on today's show. Big E Bronco.
What's going on, sir?
Shout out to Robert. Robert getting some love from the Broncos fans here on the channel. And we got Avatar joining us live. Avatar, always lovely having you on the show, having you comment live. Super interested to hear all who are here joining us live and their comments as to their team's respective schedules. And again, as we're starting to increase the viewership coming in live on the show, love seeing that number tick up. If there are any Raiders fans that are joining us live, leave a comment down below. And if any of you are so bold as to wish to join us live on the podcast, send us a message, and I will try to get you a DM maybe on X, get you in, and we'll go from there. Carlos, nice to see you. Thank you for joining, my man. Well, we are going to try to cover off the Raiders here with the two of us to go into details. I know a fair amount about the Raiders roster, and I just with my proximity to kind of interacting with you all, so I'm going to do my best to cover your schedule off. Those of you who do follow me are going to know that I'm certainly not your typical Broncos fan. I don't come into things with orange and blue glasses. Although I will say I am slightly more optimistic with my team this year than I was last. But I actually have, some actual foundational reasons as to why I am in that position.
There's a little tint of orange there in the good old shade.
Actually, at all. It's simply just I'm seeing some things that lead me to believe that the team is starting to move in the right direction. And there's a key word there, starting. So no, I'm not going to start claiming that we're going to be going to the Super Bowl or any stupid crap like that either.
It's a small tint. It's a very, very small tint.
yeah. It's like, barely tinted window sort of thing. And we'll go from there. So, Robert, I think it might be a good idea for us to start off with our team's respective rookie camps.
Yes, absolutely.
So
I
I'll throw
thought,
it to you, and let's get
yeah.
the Chargers side of things there. Obviously, this is the potential future of our teams. So let's dive right into it.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, obviously, kind of starting off with it, the big one is Joe Walt. I don't know if that you saw that picture kind of going around social media of him going up against that 6'2" DB, which obviously, it's going to make him look good, but man, there's just something about seeing that, and you're like, oh, that's the dude blocking for me. Oh yeah, okay, yeah, this was the right pick. Yeah, this was absolutely the right pick.
And sorry, what side was he on?
Oh man, the picture, I want to say it looks like he was on the left, but what I was looking at was, or what I was reading about was that currently Salyer and Pipkins are running reps on the right side, running right guard and right tackle. I guess they're kind of waiting for Joe to get a little bit more acclimated in rookie minicamp and kind of get him settled in before they make that switch. But I mean, you might have called it early, Rich. At this point I would not be surprised to see Slater moved over to the right side, because I mean, you just it's 6'9" worth of man on the left. Like, come on, like you just can't pass that up. Like, I love Slater, don't get me wrong. I'm obviously all pro left tackle. Like, that's pretty hard to do.
This isn't a knock on Slater.
Not at all.
No, but like see, and I want to make sure that I'm on record, recorded at this point, saying this because I think it's important. My comments and predictions were in no way, shape, or form some kind of indictment or any kind of negative piece towards Slater. Not at all. It's just
a compliment, if anything.
It's more of a compliment more than anything, because I was like, you don't often find a dude that says, hey, I'm the top-rated right tackle in my draft, and then your team's like, well, do you know where you're going to play? And he said, where? On the left side. He goes, cool. How about all pro level? Does that help?
Have an all pro season for you.
Yeah. Here's a couple of them, right? And like, that's a compliment to the quality of the player, which is, and just for the record, he was from the same draft as Surtain.
Yes, he was. 2 picks before Surtain? Because you were 12 in that draft, right?
No.
What were you guys?
I think we were 5th.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm totally. Yes, that's right. Yes, I'm sorry. So no, it was like 5 picks because we were 10 in that one. But yeah. So, yes.
And for the record, I've been doing this long enough to have enough tape on me to have it recorded. That I said what I said. I wanted Slater.
Yeah.
I wanted him at 5.
Yeah. I thought you guys were going to get Penne.
Oh no. Slater was the guy.
You like Slater over Penne?
Slater was Slater. Again, I'm on record, so I'm quite comfortable in saying this aloud. I wanted Slater, and the reason why I wanted Slater is because, as much as I don't think Garrett Bowles is a long-term answer at right tackle for my team, I think he's serviceable enough that you need to focus on a position on the other side to bookend those edges on the offensive line,
right,
where you need to solidify that with a rookie contract, and a good rookie at that, so that you can set it and forget it, let him develop, and then build your team from there. I prefer inside out, but it comes down to simple math here, which is your tackles, as in left and right tackle. There is a mathematical equation. You can't fight it. You can try to all you want, but I'm sorry, like, math is math and stats are stats. The best tackles at both left and right side come from within the top 10 picks, typically. At latest, you can get them sometimes at 15, but typically top 10 picks in every draft. So, like, I'm sorry, facts are facts, math is math. And yes, there are rare exceptions, and I really don't give a crap if you're going to try and say, oh, but what about this guy? The whole point is you're starting your comment with, oh, but.
Yep.
Okay? And as soon as you start a conversation with that, we done.
Yeah. pretty much.
Yeah, we done. So go ahead.
Yeah, so that's obviously, seeing all getting some reps in. That's like the best thing. You want to get him acclimated as soon as possible. Him and Slater will be big brother to Justin Herbert, and I say that Herbert's a 6'6". Herbert's no slouch either. Like the dude is built, but I mean, you just take one look at all, and you're like, oh yeah, you were born to move men around for a living. So very excited about that. And then also one of my favorite picks in the draft, and I think he's going to be an absolute stud with us. Junior Colson has just been turning heads everywhere. I think this dude's going to be an absolute stud on the defense. Giving him the green dot. I mean, this is going to be. We're going to see the Michigan defense essentially ran in the pros with Jesse Minter and Junior Colson and some of these other guys that we have. I think another one, not a rookie, but a second-year player who is also I'm really looking out for to take a huge step up this year is Tuli Peloto. I think we need Bosa and Mac to really, and Bosa especially, to stay healthy. But Mac, I really hope he really takes him under his wing, because I feel like Tuli has some really great potential being on this D line with some other talent around him. He had some flashes last year. You saw some sparks here and there, and I think this defense, I know this team is really focused on the run game and really focused on building that O-line, building the trenches, but on the other side too, I really think this defense is the unit that has to take the biggest step forward, because it was the unit that was so sorely lacking the last 4 years. We were having a bottom 5, bottom 10 defense basically every year, and it was Herbert trying to play hero ball almost every week. So I think having a defense that I heard Joe Ortiz, I believe it was on Kay Adams' show. I could be wrong about that, but I believe I didn't know he said this quote about our goal is to try to build a defense that's going to give Justin Herbert the ball back. We're gonna play hard-nosed football. We're gonna force turnovers. We're gonna make you work for every first down. One thing that, I mean, Charger fans can attest to this, that was just so infuriating. It seems like every time we had gotten a team in 3rd and long, 3rd and a million, whatever, and they would just pick it right up. There goes somebody streaking down the sideline with burnt coverage, and it's like, what are we doing? A chance to completely flip momentum, get off the field, get your offense the ball, and then you completely just collapse, and then they have a brand new, their drive is saved, and there you go, they put up 7 points, whatever, and it's just little things like that over the time add up. So I'm really excited about this group. I'm very much looking forward to seeing this defense come out. I'm very, very excited for this team.
So basically, I just heard your team is attempting to effectively rebuild the 49ers defense when Harbaugh was a coach there already. That's literally what I just heard. You were saying a bunch of words, and literally the entire time in my head, it's like, he's trying to rebuild the 49ers defense. He's trying to rebuild the 49ers defense. And that's to me, that's kind of what I heard. I mean, let's be real. That's unsurprising to me. No. It's just that doesn't surprise me at all.
It's Harbaugh.
It's Harbaugh. It is what it is. I mean, look what his brother's doing.
Yeah.
I mean, that's genetics right there.
Some people are just born with it, man. That whole Harbaugh family, they're a football family through and through.
Right. But we spoke about this last show. What makes the Harbaugh brothers unique?
I don't know. You throwing me a curveball here, or what? What makes them unique?
They were mediocre NFL quarterbacks.
Oh, okay. Didn't know where you're going with that. Yeah.
And by the way, that's not meant as a knock on either.
Oh no.
When you don't have top tier arm strength, when you don't have top tier speed, when you are not the tallest guy in the room, when you are certainly not the biggest guy in the room. I mean, they're not you don't look at them and say, wow, you're imposing to look at. You're talking kind of average all around. Guys like that need to work double or triple what other dudes need to work to even be okay. And what that does, though, is it forces them to learn layers deeper into the game than some of these dudes that are Tyreek Hill, for example, that comes in the league's like, dude, I run like a 4.2, maybe faster.
He
Freaking yards.
probably is, honestly. And
Yeah.
yeah.
And it's like, what do you mean route running? I was like, okay, fine, Andy, I'll learn how to run routes.
Yeah. I'll learn the
Right?
route tree.
Yeah,
Fine.
and look what it did for him. So I mean,
Yeah.
kudos to the dude for kind of, recognizing that he could do even better. But
Right.
the whole point is, the true athletes, like the elite level athletes, are often able to get away with a lot.
Yeah.
And the Harbaugh brothers are just simply not that physically gifted. And
but they're gifted up here.
But they're mentally gifted. And so therefore that makes them better coaches.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah,
Right?
because we
They
said
can
this
pass
last
it
week too,
along.
talking about like the one not the one exception. There's a few, but one of the most recent exceptions is Dion. Dion well, it's not even arguably, he was the best cornerback, is the best cornerback in NFL history, and it's not like really close. I mean,
No.
he's in contention for like best defensive player ever, and that's saying a lot when you had a league with LT and some of these other guys. But
He's an exception. He's an exception to the rule, though, where he learned technique and was physically gifted.
Right.
And he was a two-sport athlete too.
Yeah. Well, he was really a three-sport athlete. A lot of people don't know he was playing college, and he went all state in college and basketball. That's tough to do. And this dude went in and started playing baseball and football at the professional level. That's and then, but like I said, to even come back and be a coach, like to be that gifted to where it's almost like it like came easy to him. Like I know some people say like I didn't have the honor to watch him play. Obviously, he was before my time. But you go back and you look at footage, and I mean, like, dude, it just looked like he was like gliding. Like it didn't even look like he was like it didn't look like the rules of gravity affected him.
This is actually a good point. He was not a tackling guy. And this is an absolute fair critique.
Well.
Absolutely not absolutely a fair critique. However, there is a flip side to that, though. Back in that era, the corners were not regularly asked to be the tacklers on the team. Right. They were asked to cover the wide receivers because they were allowed to hit guys over the middle of the field when they were making those crossing routes, and that was the linebackers and the other folks. So
the safeties
were like the Atwaters and the Palomalus and the
Ed Rice or the Ed Reeds.
Ed Reeds, yes. and other guys of that kind of that ilk. Mm-hmm. They were the enforcers on the team. And again, we're talking guys like Ray Lewis. We're talking guys like Urlacher, and then even going further back than that, where we started talking about other players. Those were the enforcers on the team. Those were the guys that were coming and clocking the opposing players. And you also have to remember that they were also allowed to have contact well down the field.
Yeah.
And I mean, and I don't just mean like high five,
no.
How are you doing? I mean, like they were allowed to literally have contact. Yeah. And so we're in a different era, and we're judging people by different standards. So Deion Sanders did what most other dudes in his era couldn't do. And that was run backwards as fast or faster than the wide receivers could run forwards.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, the thing is too with Dion, he a lot of the times he just wouldn't get thrown to anymore. Like quarterbacks would just stop trying. And there's been a few cornerbacks in history that have kind of had that same treatment. Obviously, Darrelle Revis is the one that more recently. I personally think Surtain is approaching that. Like you said, he still maybe has a little bit to work on, but I absolutely think he can be one of those cornerbacks because he. I mean, I might be a bigger fan of his than you are, but I just think him being the son. I always love this. I think him being a son of a former player is always a great thing because you're already brought up with that. We talked about this already. You're brought up with that kind of like football mentality. You kind of, know a little bit better than some of these other prospects coming in because you have firsthand experience in your household. But I also think, like you said, he is one. That's Champ Bailey is absolutely one of those two of the lockdown cornerbacks. But for Sertan, I believe, and it's the reason you say, Rich, he knows what he needs to get better in. He's not satisfied with what he's done, and he's done some pretty great work in the NFL. He is not, and that's kind of a little bit of we say it goes either way. Where when you come from any NFL hierarchy, you're either gonna go the easy route, and you're not really gonna take it too seriously because you live off your father's success, or you're gonna go the hard route where I'm not my I'm not my father. I'm gonna be my own player. I'm gonna take what my father gave me and apply that, but I'm also gonna use my own. So I think he is in a very unique situation. I honestly thought you guys were gonna trade him, so I maybe have a little bit of reserve about it, just because I don't think the Broncos will be good enough in the next year or two for him to like truly stand out if he would have been traded to like another contending team. But I still think he is one of those, you know, lockdown corners. Like you almost have to game plan around him when you're facing him.
Sertan does very well when he is able to press guys to the outside. That's his strength. Like if you're going to say what's your number one, that's his deal. Champ Bailey, on the other hand, was more Deion Sanders style, but could also tackle.
Right.
And so I think Champ Bailey, if we're going to say who's the best well-rounded player, I think Champ Bailey was a better well-rounded player, if I'm going to be perfectly honest. I also think an underrated guy is Aqib Talib as well.
Yeah.
I think a lot of guys forget that Aqib Talib is in that upper echelon of interceptions in the NFL as well at the corner position. And I think that's something that a lot of people don't realize. Both his time at New England and his time at Denver. His time at Denver was almost, in some regards, more successful even than his time in New England. But he made a name for himself. He made a name for himself in New England, but I think solidified his NFL career when he came to Denver, where he was with the no-fly zone as kind of a core component of it.
Right.
But anyways, I think that getting back to rookies and all that kind of stuff, what we were originally discussing, Joe Alt, I think, is going to be incredibly a great talent for you guys. I do wonder where your other draft picks are fitting. I do wonder where those guys fit in terms of the scheme of things. And I also think it's going to be quite telling as to where they slot once the vets come in. So are they just going to be thrown off to the sideline sort of thing? Or are we going to start seeing rookies in the mix for those starting positions?
I truly think we will. And I think we saw that when you saw us sign DJ Chark following the draft, to where that was kind of like, and especially to that, position group in particular, that was kind of like one of those, like, for the rookies, like, oh, like, this wide receiver room that was kind of barren, before the draft. And now, there's obviously, I'm not going to come out here and say like, oh, we have the best receiving room in the NFL or whatever, but it's going to be a battle. These dudes are hungry. These dudes are hungry to prove themselves. Brendan Rice, you just see his interviews and his press conferences, like, he's just so motivated, and him being like, he took being drafted in the 7th round like very, very personally, and I don't think he took it in a negative way. I think he's going to use that, and it's going to fuel him. And I mean, just the competition to know, like, because in that specific position group, because it's such a barren position, I wouldn't be shocked if there's 4 rookie wide receivers on this roster come come week 1.
Yeah.
Like, I 100%, Harbaugh is not playing any favorites. It's not going to be, oh, we drafted you high. Like for Quentin Johnson, for instance, would I be shocked if he got cut? I would not. I seriously would not, because Harbaugh would be the type of person where it's like, you're not cut out to be on this team. Like, no, we're not going to have you. We're not going to waste our time. We're not going to entertain just because you were a first round pick before I even got here. You know?
I don't think you're going to give up on the whiteout in his second year. I can see Harbaugh, though. I don't say demoting him. Maybe that's the wrong choice of words, but certainly saying you're going to be on the roster, but you got to earn it, my man.
Yeah.
And I could see Harbaugh being someone like that. In my opinion, I could see that happening because I think that's important. Now, I also don't think that Harbaugh has the luxury of the deep pockets in terms of the flexibility to just make broad brush decisions like that. But I also think that that puts pressure on the other side of really focusing on free agents and being more willing to be vocal about the right people to bring in versus the wrong people to bring in. Because if you know that you can't get rid of a guy and it's going to impact your success, you're going to literally die on that hill before you allow someone that's going to hinder your ability to win games if your GM and or your owner are pounding on the table. So Harbaugh would be more likely to probably stand up on the table and say, you bring him in, I'm gone. Right?
Yeah.
And let's be honest, Harbaugh is going to have another job in about like a week if he does that anyway. So it's not like he's sitting there saying, I'm worried. It's simply going to be, he'll go out on a tour and say, I didn't want certain free agents that were going to work on my system. The owner, the GM were not listening. They refused to listen. They brought him in anyway. If they're not going to listen to me, then why would I stick with a team that doesn't want to listen to me as a head coach in terms of how I need to build the team? And on top of that, the owner doesn't have the money to cut guys and just eat that dead money for the team and rework things in escrow. And that's an important piece. Like having that extra cash flow as an owner allows and enables your team to do certain things without having to have other considerations. And I mean, you've mentioned it yourself. Your owner traditionally has not spent big in situations in scenarios. Now they've drafted well in some positions, so that's made up for it. But otherwise speaking, you guys haven't traditionally gone out and made big splash moves and dug deep into the pockets. So
Yeah.
it is what it is, and I think it's important to call that out. But I do want to cover off the Broncos because we have some other stuff to cover here as well. So the Broncos had an incredibly interesting rookie minicamp that we just finished off. A few key points. Bo Nix, while I'm not super thrilled, but I'm also not super disappointed. I'm kind of neutral on the Bo Nix pick. Showed that the initial evaluation of him by Peyton and George Peyton, based on reports, was accurate. He was throwing on time, he was throwing on schedule, and he's throwing his wide receivers in stride. All three of those things Russell Wilson can only dream of. Okay. So I mean, it's a fact, right? Like certain players play a certain way, other players play a different way. That's not even meant to necessarily be a knock against Russ, although in the NFL level, I think it is. But it's just you need a guy to be able to do certain things, and Russ was not that guy, and he could not do those things. And I think it's going to hinder him as he ages, which he is, and he will lose his speed, lose his elusiveness. And I think eventually Russ is going to find out that he's probably going to start getting hurt. Not that I want him to, but I think that he's going to slow down enough where defenders are going to bring him to the ground, and I don't think his body will be able to sustain that kind of impact. I digress. We also saw our wideouts in Vel, the guy that I predicted that the Broncos were going to draft. He has really shown apparently out in practice, which is a good thing. The comment I made on the show after the draft was, I think his maturity, this is the time for him to show that maturity matters and that he can use that to his advantage. And obviously we had Franklin, he has like the, sixth sense when it comes to him and Nick. So it's just like, showing off almost, right? And Estim, the word I keep hearing for most is specimen.
That's a pretty great description.
Yeah, and he's just built like a tank. And most people don't want to hear this in Broncos country, but I think there's going to be my prediction for this is the time for the horn. Is I predict that actually that the Broncos are likely going to move on from Javonte.
Oh yeah, you did say this in last week's show.
Yeah, my prediction is I think the Broncos will move on from Javonte Williams. I think Sean Payton and George Payton have had closed door discussions. We saw multiple running backs, not just average running backs, but I mean like pretty solid running backs get drafted by the Denver Broncos.
Mm-hmm.
And even our UDFA was a guy that most thought would be drafted. And so if you're looking at the totality of our room and the guys that we pulled in and, McLaughlin and Simanje and all these other guys, I could see Javonte being the odd man out. If he's lost that burst, lost the ability or want to be that aggressive runner because of his previous injury with his knee, it's not me trying to slander him at all. Sometimes injuries can hinder a player from being the same player they once were. And it is what it is. You hate to see it, but as a team, if the dude's lost what made him unique and great, you have to think of the team and move forward in the best interest of the team to win games. And I do question and wonder whether or not that's exactly what we saw from George and Sean Payton when they drafted and signed as UDFA the complement of running backs that we pulled in.
Yeah.
So that's where I'm at.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, it's gonna be a work in progress this season. You're kind of just hoping you see some of these late round picks you guys drafted pan out. You obviously want to see. I'm not sure if Knicks will. We don't project Knicks to start right away, barring some like injury or anything.
I don't think he should.
Yeah, I don't think he should either.
The problem is, I think he might.
Man, so okay, in that case, if you do start Knicks, then yeah, you're kind of just you're kind of hoping for, and I'm not trying to like say he's going to play as well as Justin Herbert did, but you're kind of hoping for that type of season from Knicks to where it's like, okay, we see the flashes, we see like, okay, yeah, when we get some talent around him, we protect him a little more. This dude's going to be, our franchise. So yeah, it's gonna be an interesting first I'll say 7-8 weeks to say the least.
Yes.
Depending on how your quarterback play goes, we very well may see Knicks come in kind of like mid-season, like November, December.
Yeah, see, I think that the intention here is to have a quarterback competition between Wilson and Stidham, and to say, bloodbath, see who wins.
And who do you think wins in that? As a Broncos fan.
See, it's interesting actually for me.
Yeah, that's
interesting because, in my opinion, I think Stidham will beat Wilson out.
That's what I think too.
Because I think that he is a better processor. And
Wilson's got the arm, but
Wilson has the arm, and he has some of the other intangibles that could potentially kind of tilt the scales. But I think that a splash play is only as good, as what it does for the team in terms of the ultimate end goal. And if your splash play gets you a touchdown, but then your other idiot decisions end up having 2 turnovers, for example,
right?
Like
that's the difference in the ball game right there.
What does it all mean, Basil? You know what I mean? Like what's the point? Yeah, and I think that's kind of where we're at with Wilson as it compares to Stidham. I think Stidham is going to use his head. I think he's a better processor of the field, and I will literally say this until I have facts to prove me wrong. All indications and all facts are pointing to the simple fact that my Denver Broncos edited out and dumbed down their playbook because Russ could not do what Sean Payton needed him to do.
Yeah.
And if you're looking for a team to show that that is likely more true than not, you need to look no further than the New England Patriots, who sucked. However, they had a head coach in Bill Belichick, who was inarguably one of the smartest and most brilliant defensive minds perhaps to ever come into the NFL, but certainly that was currently on an NFL team on the coaching staff. The only exception to that might be Vic Fangio. Okay.
Yeah.
Like, only exception to that might be Vic Fangio.
Yeah.
But Bill Belichick recognized the 3 or 4 things that Russ could do and only do, and literally took them away. And Russ looked like high school pedestrian.
Yeah. I mean, you look at Russ's numbers and you're like, oh, he played all right, but then you just watched the games and you could just tell, like, yeah, like Russ is not cooking, to put it nicely.
Here, this is a much better analogy. Sean Payton is Martha Stewart. He put together all the recipes and then told the line cook to go and cook the recipes. And Russ is now trying to claim that he's a Michelin star chef.
Yeah. Yeah, that sounds about right.
Yeah. So that's kind of the way I look at it, right? Is if you have like Gordon Ramsay handing you the recipe and then saying, oh, and by the way, the instructions are on page 2. Like, and then you go out and look halfway decent. Well, of course you did. You literally had a cheat sheet. You had a cheat code.
You had the best of the best.
You had the best of the best behind
show you step by step. Here's what you got to do. Yeah,
it's ridiculous.
I think we'll see that very quickly in Pittsburgh. If Russ is slated to be the starter, I think Pittsburgh's going to find out very quickly, and we do play them week 3. So we will have probably we'll have a Russell Wilson game. I'm very interested to see how Harbaugh or the Jesse Minter defense will do against Wilson, and is it going to make me hope or wish that we would have hired Harbaugh earlier to see all the success he might have against it? But it could also be Justin Fields very quickly.
I agree with that, actually. I actually agree that Fields could be thrown into the fire sooner than most people think if Wilson doesn't make some changes pretty quickly and humble himself very quickly. The sad part is that his podcast appearances this offseason do not give me hope for humbling of any kind.
I don't think humble is in his vocabulary.
Humble is not a word that I would have used to describe his candor and words that he described himself using on those podcasts. He kind of used words that you would think would be humble in some regard, but then when you actually looked at how the words were applied and the context in which they were provided in those conversations, it was very it was effectively the opposite.
Yeah.
And I think that's a challenge. And it was also directly contrary to the report that came from the Denver Broncos just a month later, which was, we started him off trying to make calls at the line. He couldn't do it. Then we gave him a wristband. He still couldn't do it. And then we tried to dumb down the offense. He still couldn't do it. And then we had to basically shorten every play to 2 words.
Yikes.
Okay. That was the progression of things that took place with the Denver Broncos, according to the Denver Broncos. And then Russ went on his apology tour or pump up tour, however you want to look at it. And
Bronco country, let's ride.
And then said, no. I learned how to read defenses really well when I was back in Seattle. Don't worry about me. And so it was like the exact opposite, narrative between what was going to come out for Denver and what he said. So anyways, super interested in what we're going to see. Love some of the rookies that are in the Denver Broncos. And what I'm even more excited for is to see the synergy with a complete offseason between Sean Payton and George Payton. What I believe is going to be interesting for many in the NFL, including the AFC West, is just because you don't know the dude doesn't mean the dude can't be successful. We have seen so many teams, including the Patriots, the Raiders have been infamous for doing these sorts of things, by the way. Right? Infamous for doing these sorts of things. And we've seen this countless other times, including other teams, such as look at the Buccaneer center, who was like a third-round pick and is an all-pro, like all-world NFL center. So these types of players can be had if they're put in the right system with the right coaches and the right schemes where they absolutely kill it.
And it's not about when you're drafted, it's about where you get drafted.
Correct. And if you have the right coach that has the right vision for what you can do, you can take an average player and make them look amazing. And then if you take an average player from a system where they look amazing and move them to a system that doesn't fit them, they can look equally as trash.
Right.
And so we have to give credit and or criticism where it's due. And I think a lot of people don't do that. Now, I don't have a ton of information on the Raiders rookies because I haven't been able to get any footage from that personally. And I also didn't get a ton of footage or anything on the Chiefs rookies or any other information on that. So I don't want to go into detail or make any comments on either of those two teams just because I can't speak from solid ground on that.
Yeah.
What I will say is for all of you Raiders fans in the chat, comments down below. Which rookie did you hear from your rookie minicamp that did well and why? And I'm going to throw those up on screen, and I'm going to ask that we start having some discussions as we continue on with the show about those players so that we can cover off all of the AFC West and make sure that you're as equally represented as you possibly can be. Now, with that in mind, Robert, let's shimmy shake on forward.
It's schedule time.
It's schedule time, baby.
Yes, sir.
All right. So, there has been an official leak of the entirety of the Chargers schedule.
Yes. Well, I have the official schedule in front of me now.
Oh, you do? Great. Okay,
yes.
Great.
Yes.
So you have that as well. Now, I'm going to confirm that against the official schedule for the Broncos. I happen to have a full 32-team schedule leak in front of me that I had before the show started. This is an ask me no questions, tell me no lies moment. Ladies and gentlemen. However, I had the Broncos schedule starting at like 9 a.m. Eastern Standard today, ready to go where I reviewed it for the show. I'm going to start with you again, Robert, though. With the official schedule that has now come out for your Chargers, where are you at?
So got the I was able to pull it up in front of me. I have the on the Chargers app here. So we're starting it off, kicking it off with a division rival, week 1. We got the Raiders at home here at SoFi. Once again, the yearly tradition of us playing the Raiders first at home continues. Only this season, we are quite literally not going to see them again until the very last game of the season, which is a little bit odd. I think we're usually used to having KC end of the season. That's usually our AFC West opponent that we end the year with. So it's going to be interesting. I'm not sure. It's going to be interesting because at the very beginning, at the very end of the seasons, well, at the very beginning, you just don't know what to expect, especially with a brand new head coach, brand new system, everything. It's just going to be kind of, you're going to just hope to get a lot of positives to take away from that first. But damn, talk about Harbaugh getting thrown right into it. Division game right out the gate. I love it though. It's great. And then to end the season with the Raiders, it's kind of, and the reason why I say this, and I'm not trying to downplay the Raiders or talk bad on them, but realistically, I just don't see the Raiders being competitive in the wild card solely because the AFC, and injuries can happen, things can happen that can totally change the landscape. But as it stands right now, with everybody healthy, the AFC is easily the better of the two conferences, and there's probably a solid 12 teams in the AFC that can viably compete for a playoff spot, I believe. So I think it's just going to be so tough for the Raiders. They don't have that guy at QB, and I really feel like, especially in the AFC, if you don't have that difference maker at the position, you're just not going to go far. So I'm curious to see where we'll be by that point when we play them. I usually, try to hope for, because I'm looking on the schedule here, a little spoiler. We have 3 primetime games this season. I usually hope for the Chiefs at the last week of the season because they love to flex games at that final week. And if for whatever reason, it's that close, that the Chiefs Chargers as the final game of the season would be pretty awesome. But I digress. So yeah, we got the Raiders week 1, and then you got back-to-back road games versus the Panthers and the Steelers. Panthers, obviously, I mean, realistically, I'm not even like trying to be cocky here. That should be a win. Whoa, what kind of video is it, Biggie? Wait, don't scare me.
It's either gonna be football related, in which case that's fine, or it's gonna be something else, which is probably also fine. And either way, you're probably okay. So. So,
oh man, Jesus. But yeah, so getting back to football. So yeah, back-to-back road games, Panthers, Steelers. I mean, Panthers should be a win. Let's be real, it should be a win. And the Steelers, that'll be a tough game because the Steelers are very well coached and they play very hard defense. And getting them that early on, knock on wood, you're probably not going to see too many injuries that early on. So you're probably going to get the bulk of that defense with TJ Watt, with, some of those other pieces they have. But I think that's a winnable game for us. That's definitely, because again, I'm looking at these games and I'm like looking at the quarterback situation, right? Who do we have at quarterback versus who do they have? They have Russell Wilson, who just got run out of the division, and Justin Fields, who just got ran out of his division. So they have 2 QBs that nobody necessarily wants, and we have a perennial Pro Bowl, or not perennial. I'm speaking a little bit ahead, but you have a Pro Bowl caliber top 5 QB in the league in Herbert. Yeah, you should probably win that game. Then you got the Chiefs, week 4. That one's probably going to be a loss. I could definitely see us losing both games to the Chiefs this year. If we split, I'll be ridiculously happy. If Harbaugh can beat the Chiefs one time, and it looks like the next time we play them that's one of our primetime games later on in the year. So this would be the one to win. I'm also speaking as a Chargers fan that is used to being pessimistic, and so. We'll see how we do, but I expect to split with the Chiefs. I expect to split with all division opponents. It's just kind of the way I look at it, barring some ridiculous injuries. Again, this is all barring injury. One injury on any of these teams can completely flip and change the outcome of it. But as it stands right now, got an early bye week 5. I'm really not a fan of that. That's fair, Biggie. That's fair. That is understandable. But yeah, I hate the early bye. It's always such a nightmare, especially in the 17 game season now. Getting a bye after only 4 weeks. Damn, man, that's rough. I was really hoping we would have gotten it at least to week 9.
Your bye week's week 5 though, right?
Yeah, week 5.
Yeah,
so that's a tough one. But coming out of the bye, we got the game at home versus you guys. That's on the 13th of October. That'll be, it's going to be. I feel like our teams always split. You guys usually win in Denver, and we usually win at home, I think is how it usually goes. So once again, I just expect it. Like it's division opponents. You play each other twice a year. Like forget what people tell you, like, oh, but this team should be so better. It's division. Everything goes out the window with division games. Like no matter how talented, these teams hate each other. Well, they very strongly dislike each other, and they're gonna make it known.
Yeah.
I'm sorry that and I don't know why I said that was a home game for us. That is an away game. That is in Denver. So you guys probably win that one if history holds true.
Yes.
You guys will win that first matchup.
Yeah.
And then we got the Cardinals in Arizona on Monday night. We're gonna get to see Marvin Harrison. I'm happy with all, but man, there was a dream there for a minute that Marvin Harrison might have fallen to us. So we're gonna get to see him in action. That's the Monday night game in October. Then we're back home against the Saints. Really should win that game too. I also believe we should win the Cardinals. I'm not sold on Kyler Murray, not to get in too deep with that, but I've never been the biggest believer in Kyler Murray. I think Marvin Harrison Jr. is fantastic. I think they've done a good job putting pieces around him to succeed. So I think it'll be a good game. I still see us winning that one.
I agree. Circus Midget shouldn't play quarterback. Sorry. Hi, how are you?
Damn, Rich. Cashing strays over here. I didn't know this was an NFC West podcast. Damn. Oh man. Oh shit. Yeah. So you got me with that one. All right. So after that, yeah, then we got the Saints back at home. So we are taking on the NFC South. Thank God. That is easily the worst of all of those 4 divisions in the NFC. So thank you for that, schedule makers. I don't even think it's up to them. I think it was just that was the year we happened to fall into. Now we play them the NFC South. I did say NFC South. Yeah, NFC South. Following the Saints away game. I'm sorry, following the Saints home game. Jesus Christ. We going to Cleveland to play the Browns. This one is a yeah. This one's gonna.
You're done.
Yeah, this one's probably going to be a loss. Nick Chubb is
you're done.
Probably back. So the only saving grace we can have in this is if Deshaun Watson is just completely and utter garbage and just actively throws. But that team is that defense. That's going to be. I'm kind of looking at the schedule here. Obviously, Max, week 1 is going to be. I didn't even mention this for Joe Wall. Week 1's going to be right into.
You're going to have an issue with that one because I'm pretty sure after the Tom Brady roast, Watson and Robert Kraft have had a conversation. Kraft has provided his Rolodex of where to go for massages, Watson will be just fine.
If that's the case, then we are screwed.
You're
there's
done.
There's no chance. So yeah, that's at home. So definitely not going to go to that game. And then we got. Or I'm sorry, that's on the road. Then we got 3 straight home games against the Titans. That should be a win. Bengals. So that one is very dependent on Joe Burrow. Very dependent on his health and the health of that team. But I could also see us losing to the Bengals. That one is kind of a coin flip in my opinion.
If Joe Burrow was back, and I mean back to his typical self, that'll be a tough
one.
We're at home. That'll be down to a field goal kind of thing.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And that'll be one of those games.
Yeah.
And it'll come down to your team's health. It'll come down to their team's health. Mm-hmm. And I mean, that is such a unique scenario because I see Joe Burrow and Herbert as being very similar players.
I completely agree.
And I mean, it's super interesting. Like to me, that's like a super interesting game. Just a really, really interesting one.
The games between Chargers, Dolphins, Bengals, Packers, even Eagles, really. Those are all going to be under such a microscope because of that draft class. You had five starting caliber QBs come out of that draft class. That's pretty damn impressive, man. To have 5 guys come out of class and they're still currently playing for the teams that drafted them and have had success. Every quarterback in that draft class has had some variation of success with that team. Herbert has a little bit more of the personal accolades because he won the Rookie of the Year, Pro Bowl, things like that. Obviously, you have Hurts and Burrow that just have the team success, have gotten to a Super Bowl Tua has just put up ridiculous stats, across the past 2 seasons. And then Jordan Love, we haven't really gotten too much of him, but we saw him win a playoff game, and I think it's 2. I want to say it's 2, Biggie, but it's definitely not. Yeah, it's not great. The injury late. The injury prone tag is 100% on him at this current moment. He's just missed too much time to not consider him injury prone. But yeah, going back to that, yeah. So these games between when we faced the Bengals,
Robert, right. If I could just quickly kind of call that out, his 2020 season, which is his rookie season, he played 10 games.
Mm-hmm.
He then played 16 and 16 in 2021 and 2022, respectfully.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
And then 2023, he again only played 10 games. So
yeah,
it's 2 full seasons, but it's an odd blend in terms
right.
of.
And those 2 full seasons were, like you saw it, they went to the Super Bowl. So it's like it sucks to see like this is what you could be if you could just stay healthy. And, a lot of people kind of say, a lot of people look back to the draft class following that, where they could have easily had Penei Sewell. And, obviously you don't have Jamar Chase, but you look what happened with Joe Burrow, and you're like, damn, maybe we should have went with the O-lineman to protect him. And this is why I'm very happy the Chargers went with Alt in this year's draft, because they did not want to repeat that same mistake. They saw him get hurt and injured to cut his season short last year, and they're like, that is never happening again. So help us God, we're going to put just behemoth of men in front of him. Going back to the schedule. Yeah, so the 3 straight home games, Tennessee, Bengals. Then he got the Monday Night Football game against the Ravens, the Harbaugh Bowl. Off just by a little bit. It's not Thanksgiving. It is the same week as Thanksgiving, though. It is the Monday before, so I was very close on it. But it's happening. The Harbaugh Bowl will happen. It's going to be a primetime game. It had to be. It just makes sense. Harbaugh's first. Coming back to the NFL, it made all the sense. And then we're at home back-to-backs against the Falcons. That's a weird one for me. That one is a little bit tricky. I could see us winning it. I could also 100. You think we'll win that game?
You're winning that game.
Yeah, I think we can, but maybe this is just like the previous Chargers like chargering speaking to me, and I know I'm trying to have a clear head about that with Harbaugh now being the head coach, but it's tough. It's been like a decade plus of just knowing like, yeah, we're probably going to lose this game by a score. We're probably going to blow it in the final minutes. It's just typical Chargers football. So that's going to be a tough one for me. I feel like the Chargers and the Falcons are the chokers of their respective conferences.
Yep.
I'm not sure if many people remember the last time we played the Falcons. We won the game off on the final drive. Eckler fumbles the ball. It's picked up by a D lineman for Atlanta. The D lineman on the return fumbles, and we pick it back up with like a minute 20 left. We go down, kick a game-winning field goal, and that's it. So it took a double fumble for us to beat them last time, 20-17. Again, it's Harbaugh, so I really don't think that kind of those circus plays are going to happen, but you just never know. So then it's that was week 13, and then it's Chiefs at home, Sunday Night Football. That's the second matchup. That's going to be the big one, depending on how we have done up until then. This could be a big game for us. I still don't see us winning this division, but if God forbid, or not God forbid, but if God willing, we surprise everyone and we're in a chance to win this division come week 14 against them, it's going to be a huge game. And then back-to-back road games. Buccaneers against Mayfield, back-to-back road games going to against Tampa Bay and you guys, week 16, and finishing it off back-to-back games on the road in New England. That should be a win. And in Jesus Christ, in Vegas. And like I said, whether we win or lose, I think it'll be a split. But if there's one team I feel confident in sweeping this year, it's the Raiders. But like I said, division opponents, so half and half. All in all, if I had to give a record prediction looking at this, man, I mean, being realistic and being optimistic, I could definitely see us winning 10 games. I think 10-7 is a solid record. However, I'm a Chargers fan, so I'm gonna be a little biased. I can see us. I'll say 11-6.
I actually think that Carlos is correct.
Yeah.
Your team has still got some question marks in their offensive line and the interior.
Mm-hmm.
One of the Raiders' best players is in the interior. Okay, let me even go a step further. One of the NFL's best players plays for the Raiders in the interior.
Yeah.
His last name is Crosby.
Yep.
The dude's like, he's probably got at least 3 years of like ridiculous level of play left.
Oh yeah.
Like ridiculous level of play. And then even then, I kind of see him, barring whether or not his body is built the way I think it is, I think he's going to be one of those dudes that's just going to be kind of like a Ray Lewis in the fact that his body's just built different and he's probably going to last
a little longer.
Yeah,
They're trying to maximize him, by getting Wilkins. Obviously, that Wilkins signing is, they're finally getting him some help.
But there is a legitimate question of, I think he's got 3 years of like just play where you'd be like, the dude's just insane, like just nuts. And then you get into those legitimate questions: is can his body sustain what is nothing shy of abuse at the end playing in the NFL? And if he can, then I mean, who knows? I mean, like, who knows? I mean, he could be that like unicorn type player that just like, well, I've like got 4 contracts now at the NFL that have all been for max value, and I'm good now.
Yeah.
But you never know, because he seems like he's built different. Max Crosby reminds me of Derek Wolfe, except Max Crosby is a better player than Derek Wolfe.
Oh yeah, 100%. Oh yeah,
so
definitely. Yeah,
I think Max Crosby is not as good against the run as Derek Wolfe is, but I think Max Crosby is a far superior pass rusher. And
I would agree.
And look, Big E, I agree. I would love to not speak into existence Max Crosby being the rare unicorn. And yes, I would rather not jinx my team. But just as our division had to suffer through Von Miller through both his glory years and slightly after they existed, which was still better than most, right? Like Von Miller, not as good, is still better than 90% of the people that play outside linebacker in the NFL, right?
Yeah. Von Miller's average years are some people's career bests.
Yeah, exactly. So, like, let's just be real. We had the benefit of that in our team. I mean, it's undeniable that Max Crosby is in that kind of group of players. Like, he is right in that, cream of the crop.
You just don't see it because of the team success.
Yeah, like,
or it's not. It's not recognized.
Yes, exactly. The league doesn't recognize it because 1, he's a Raider, and 2, his team has not done particularly well.
Yeah.
And as a result, he just doesn't get the same accolades that he really should.
Same recognition.
Yeah, he should. I mean, the dude is like, if he continues this, he's probably on track, and he should be considered for the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, I mean, it's just ultimately, like you said, it's going to come down to, can he stay healthy? If Crosby stays healthy, he is the heart and soul of that Raiders defense. Like, through and through, he is. Here's the thing, right? With DNs, with edge rushers in particular, they, like we've always talked about, they play one of the premier positions in the league. If you don't have that guy rushing the opposing team's quarterback, you're going to get picked apart.
Yeah.
And on top of that, on top of having that guy, very few, and Von Miller was a great example of this. Very few have that extra gear that they can like flip on when it's like my team needs a turnover, my team needs a stop, we need to make a play. Aaron Donald was the same way. We need a play right here, right now. I'm gonna do it. Call my number. Just tell me to go, and I'm gonna get us the ball back. I'm gonna completely flip the momentum.
Yeah.
And Miller was that dude. Donald was that dude. Crosby is that dude. I mean,
Yeah.
it's kind of, obviously as a Chargers fan, I'm like, thank God they didn't get him any help for as long as they did. But it's almost, it has to be relieving. T.J. Watt as well. Thank you, Big E. Yes, 100%. T.J. Watt, Myles Garrett is another one. Like, they're just these dudes that they just have that extra knack.
Yeah.
And I'm stunned it took the Raiders this long to finally give them some help, because teams would just double team, and that's all you had to do, really.
Yeah, one of the challenges I think the Raiders had, in my opinion, was they were trying to find the right vision for their team overall. And they had a guy in Max Crosby who was able to do so much that he was able to cover a lot, in terms of cover up a lot. It's like, lipstick on a pig, right? Where if you have a guy that is so good, and he is that good, like, I mean, there's no denying it, he can make he can cover up and make other guys around him look even better than they probably were. And I think that's one of the challenges that the Raiders ended up having, which was he was able to cover up things and make the rest of the team look better just because he was that much better than everybody else.
Yeah.
But to your point, if they had supplemented that and kind of bolstered him on that D line, I think that the Raiders team could have been, so good. I do want to just throw out a few interesting stats here for everyone on the podcast. But before I do, you can click the like button, the little thumbs up thingy, looks kind of like this, down below the video. It really does help all of our channels. And if you go into the description in the video, all of our channels are listed there. If you can visit those and click those thumbs up, it actually helps all of our channels reach more AFC West fans just like you. And we get to have some really cool conversations with a bunch of folks. So I really do appreciate if you can go ahead and do that for us. Thank you very much. Now, with that in mind, I have a win percentage over the last 10 years. So that's 2014 to 2024. Some interesting information for all of the AFC West fans out there that are joining us live tonight. I'm going to go from lowest win percentage to highest win percentage. Now, the highest win percentage shouldn't come as a surprise to anybody. Okay. However, lowest win percentage within our division is, in fact, the Las Vegas Raiders. They have a .436 win percentage. And that's out of 32 teams, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. There are 7 teams below them. They are the 8th lowest on the list out of all 32 teams at .436.
Who's below them? Just curious.
In order of lowest to where the Raiders are, I'll just list them off. Jaguars at the lowest.
Makes sense.
New York Jets.
Makes sense.
New York Giants. Cleveland Browns. Chicago Bears. Washington Football Team, now the Commanders. And the Carolina Panthers.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
that order should not come as a surprise to anybody who watches football, right?
Okay, or has in the last decade.
Right. And then, so now we're going to go back up, just because I know that you are going to ask this, guys, we kind of get to the other AFC West teams. So I'm just going to start listing them off. Houston Texans are next. Then we have the Falcons. Then we have the Cardinals. Then you have the Lions. And then tied with the Lions tied with the Lions, Falcons, Cardinals, and Buccaneers is your Chargers at .460 as a win percentage. And barely eking all of you out, I mean, the
Broncos
is my Denver Broncos at .466.
Man, that 2015 season's really just like dragging you guys up.
I am holding on to that with an iron grip. We'll just put it that
Oh
way.
man.
Okay. Now, to kind of just call off what Big E has put here, which I agree with actually.
Oh yeah.
Cleveland has got a great team now, and if we're gonna start like every year that this drops off, Cleveland is gonna do like kind of one of those, right?
Yep.
And so that's going to be a really interesting chart to see in the next like 2 to 3 years, because this whole thing is just like all over the map now, right?
Yeah.
Like the Broncos are going to plummet, the Cleveland Browns are going to skyrocket.
I expect us to take a solid leap.
But traditionally, you guys haven't, right? So that's the thing.
Yeah.
That you're going to be like the Broncos. You're going to drop before you go up, right?
And we might have done that already with last season.
Right. So I'm going to quickly just rhyme off the other teams. Titans, 49ers, Bengals, Dolphins, Colts, Rams, Vikings, Eagles, Saints, Bills, Cowboys, Ravens, Seahawks, Packers, Steelers, Patriots. Remember, you're still within the Super Bowl era.
Yeah, so, right. Of course.
Right?
Of course. Yeah.
Yeah. And then at the top of that list, the very last and top of our division, and frankly, the team to beat, for we're all honest with ourselves, is the Kansas City Chiefs. Right. And that makes nothing but sense given what they've done recently.
What's their win percentage? Just curious.
0.718.
Fuck off, man! Jesus Christ! What the?
But you have to remember is that every year that goes by, and they have Mahomes there, their actual win percentage will actually go up.
It's going up
because the reason why it's so low, and it's crazy to say that out loud, is because the Alex Smith era.
Yep.
It's still factored in here.
Dude, it should be like 800. That's absolutely wild.
Yeah. So
yeah,
so anyways,
that's rough.
This is over the last 10 years. So again, just to make everyone understand what I was just giving the information for here. This is from 2014, so inclusive of 2014 to 2020, it'll be 2013 to 2023.
Yes. Yeah,
and
2013, 2014 season.
Right. And so 2024 is coming up this year, which will then extend that out to 2014. And so again, every year you start shifting this back. My Denver Broncos go further down. Your Chargers actually go further down. Yeah. And then you end up with the Chiefs, believe it or not, that actually start climbing higher, which is just mind-boggling in terms of the fact that they're already high enough on the list. So anyways, I'm going to start digging into my Broncos schedule.
Yes, sir.
And start breaking things down. So we start the season again with the Seattle Seahawks. So that is an interesting one.
Drew Lock revenge game.
So, Drew Lock is not with the Seahawks anymore.
Wait, am I tripping? Who did he go with?
I don't want to misspeak. I just want to double check. He's with the Giants.
Oh, that's right. Oh my God, that's right. I can't believe he's playing Dreadlocks. Love it.
So Big E, I've actually been on record, and I will own my take on this. I think the Broncos did Drew Lock dirty. I actually think that he could have been a halfway decent quarterback for us. I actually think he could have done a lot more for us as a QB. John Elway, again, screwed our team over royally when he got rid of Rick Scangarello. Rick Scangarello put forward an offensive scheme that fit Drew Lock's style, which is kind of that West Coast, old school, Gary Kubiak kind of blend. Drew Lock is a bit of a gunslinger / go with the flow kind of guy. And you need him to build on success. You need him to build on that type of style. And unfortunately, our Denver Broncos then said, we saw you go 4-0 at the end of that year with Scangarello. Forget about that. We don't want to replicate that. That's stupid. We're going to bring in Pat Shurmur because Shurmur has been so good in the NFL that his average ranking is in the high 20s in terms of worst ranking. So not 20 being high, as in 20 being 20 out of 32 teams. And the Broncos and John Elway said, we're going to bring in Shurmur instead. Don't worry, Drew. We got you. And then as a Broncos team, we were all collectively surprised when they sucked.
Spoiler alert, Drew. They didn't have you.
Yeah, I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but the Broncos did no favors of Drew Lock, and they didn't help him at all.
Oh, okay.
And then for those Broncos fans that are still with us, and those AFC West fans that are still with us, near the end of that season with Pat Shurmur, who was trash on all levels, we also had our offensive line coach, who was a Denver native, who championed a different style of offense, which is flanking tight ends. One of my favorite styles of NFL defenses, by the way. You can go back and find my personnel breakdowns on previous shows here on the MHRT network. I'm not going to get into the X's and O's too deep on this show, but if we would like to talk more football in terms of formations, I'm all for it. But anyways, flanking tight ends outside, supporting both tackles, one of my favorite type of formations in the NFL because I think it gives you a lot of flexibility. However, that was what we saw in Shurmur's second year when he proved that he sucked even more than what people thought he would. And our offensive line coach had to step in to make our offense look modestly respectable rather. And even then he couldn't fix it. And then everyone got fired anyway. Yeah. So that was kind of the peak of trash for the Denver Broncos. And frankly, it's exactly what happens when you have a front office that doesn't pay attention to what actually needs to happen on the field. When you have that ultimate disconnect between A and B, and it is it's unfortunate because it really the Broncos didn't deserve that. The Broncos could have done so much better, and we wouldn't be where we are now if we had a front office and a GM that actually paid attention, which is unfortunate because I think that we could have been a much better team than where we are at now. I would have loved to see Scangarello stay on. I would have loved to have seen a team build around a vision. And thankfully for my Denver Broncos, I am starting to see glimmers of that. Just glimmers. Now, the Chargers are hopefully starting to see some of that as well with some of the picks that you guys saw this year.
Yes.
You're starting to say, wait, this is totally different for us. Why are we doing that? Why are we doing? Well, that's because Harbaugh. That's because
our picks
Harbaugh
make sense.
Yeah. It's like it all adds up, right?
Yep.
And the Raiders rather within the division as well. We started to see some interesting moves. I'm not going to say they were great. I think they were good moves for the Raiders, and I think that they are ultimately going to turn out well. But I do think that I would have loved to seen you guys go out and get Fuaga. I truly think that Angelo and I are in lockstep. That the Raiders and getting Fuaga would have been the best.
Match made in heaven.
Yeah, because that would have been a nightmare for the rest of the division, and I think that he's going to show to be a pretty generational talent. However, you got a guy that is projected to be elite at the tight end / wide receiver position in Bowers.
Yes.
And
generationally elite.
Yeah. And you got, hands down, in my opinion, the best value in your second round pick, JPJ, which I don't understand. He should have gone first round, within the top 20, right? And he made it all the way to the second round. I think JPJ may prove to be the diamond that the Raiders can kind of point to say, I'm sorry, what now?
Yeah.
Um,
I mean, if you look at it and if you play it like this, just in your head, imagine they drafted JPJ at 12 and they took Brock Bowers in the second round. That sounds way better if you look at it in that regard than in the way the actual draft picks went out. But I mean, yeah, don't
so
see that happening.
Edward, I actually think he should probably end up, if he projects out to the way he is at the NFL level, win Rookie of the Year. The problem is, and this is I don't want to go down to this in the podcast, but I'm going to have to at least dig into a little bit. So I apologize to everyone joining us right now for what's about to come. I think he probably should win Rookie of the Year if he projects out to where I think he should. The problem is, you're then supposing that the average NFL fan can actually recognize exactly what an offensive center can and does at the NFL level. And I'm not trying to insult, like, I don't know, 20 million people, but y'all are stupid. Because most people don't recognize how critical that offensive center possession is. They just don't get it. Like, he is arguably one of the most important positions on the football team for sure.
But is he going to play center?
And hold on. And if you want to ask someone who will say yes to that, is that dude right there. Ask him how his team did when Lindsley went down.
Yep.
Oh,
like
wait.
A completely different team.
Oh, wait. How'd it go?
Well, where were we picking this year? 5th?
5. Yeah. 5.
That should tell you. That should tell you how it went.
There you go. Thanks.
Did our quarterback play the entire season? Oh, he got injured? Yeah, that'll do it. Yeah, that'll do it right away.
And Carlos, I agree.
Oh yeah.
Like trust me, JPJ, the fact you guys got him in the second where you did is, I mean,
unbelievable.
Like, high five to your GM. That's all I got to say. Right? But at the same time, though, and the reason why I'm stating what I'm stating here is you have a very pivotal season this year for the Las Vegas Raiders. AOC 4 is either going to show out to be the guy, or he's going to show you that he needs to be replaced. And Minshew, while he is great, I actually really like Minshew. Like, I really, really like him as a quarterback. And I mean that very seriously. He reminds me of a better Brissett. Jacoby Brissett.
Okay.
He's got a little bit more grit. He's got a little bit more personality. He's got a little bit more of all of the things across the board, right?
Yeah.
But the problem is that you need a little bit more than that, in my opinion, to truly compete to get to a championship in the NFL level.
Oh yeah.
And if you don't have a little bit more than that at the quarterback position, then you need to field an elite level team on kind of either side of the ball to, like, kind of own teams in some regard.
Right.
And I think that the Raiders made a massive step forward. I mean, huge step forward in terms of the building of your team. JPJ, I think, is going to be the most important building block that you guys have made maybe in the last 10 years, except for Max Crosby. Okay, except for Max Crosby.
Right.
And I think that's saying something. However, I think that shoring up your offensive line for a younger quarterback that's still trying to learn the ebbs and flows and be put into a system that's brand new, I think that's the best thing that you can do for a young quarterback, is to put a line in front of him that they can grow together and learn as a collective unit with both the quarterback and the 5 linemen in front of him, and really just dial it all up and really amp it up. And I think you can then start seeing that, like, huge step forward from your quarterback. And even if AOC 4 in a subpar offensive line didn't look great, you can get a quarterback to start gaining confidence because he has proper protection from an offensive line, and you can kill it. Like, and I mean kill it.
Yeah. I mean, is JPJ going to start at center right away though? They did announce him as a guard at the draft.
That's stupid.
I agree. I'm
No, it's
right there
stupid.
with
It's
you. Yeah.
stupid.
Yeah,
Stupid, stupid,
absolutely.
stupid. Like,
But that's a realistic. I mean, we're also talking about the Raiders here. Stupid and the Raiders. You know,
no. The one thing I will give the Raiders credit for, Antonio Pierce is no dummy.
That is true.
Okay, look,
I agree
like
with.
there is a whole bunch of question marks that exist within the Las Vegas Raiders. Antonio Pierce and his football IQ is not one of them. I would be absolutely just like legitimately
Befuddled.
just like, are you kidding me?
Yeah.
Like you drafted a guy that came into the draft as like literally came into the draft as being touted as generational offensive center. and it would not be wise to move him to guard on either side.
No.
You keep the guy in the processor position of your offensive line, and you let him be the guy that kind of, stirs the drink, if you will, because by all accounts that's the caliber of player that guy is. And when you solidify that center and pair him with a quarterback that they mesh with, that's insane.
Yeah.
Now,
I
I want to get back real quick to the Denver Broncos schedule, and I'm going to
Yes.
start going both by team and wins and loss for my team to really start clicking this thing through. Seattle Seahawks, I see that as a win for the Denver Broncos. We start 1-0. Game 2 is Seattle Seahawks, I see as a loss, for the Denver Broncos in week 1. Week 2, we are against the Steelers. I see that as a win for the Denver Broncos. I believe that the Broncos are going to be a better team. No, sorry, flip that. Win Seahawks, loss Steelers. I think the defense is going to be too much for the Denver Broncos, and that'll be our challenge. Week 3, Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I believe we win that game against the Bucs, and I think that puts us at 2-1 for the season so far after week 3. Week 4 against the New York Jets, I see that as a loss, which puts us at 2-2 for the season. I believe the Jets have simply done too much. Aaron Rodgers will not get hurt again like he did the first year. That dude is at a different level from most quarterbacks in the NFL. And the fact that he was left off of many top 10 lists is just ridiculous. Now, week 5, Las Vegas Raiders. This is going to be a tough one. This is Sunday Night Football. Raiders versus Broncos. This is kind of one of those. Sorry, not Sunday Night Football. This is afternoon game. Sorry. Raiders versus Broncos.
In Denver or Vegas?
This one here in the Las Vegas is they are at home. And I think this year the Broncos will split with the Raiders. I think that the Broncos have done certain things this year to level ourselves up. Now, the Raiders are the one team that I actually see the Broncos losing to, though. So this is my coin flip game. I said this last year. I'm on record. So, again, I've been doing this long enough. I just can't lie. I had the Broncos losing to the Raiders both games last year, and guess what we did? Sorry, but I win. And I see this one here being the Broncos' first win against the Raiders in many years. Because the Raiders are at home with the Broncos, and I believe we have done just enough to win that game at home. I'm not saying this is going to be a blowout.
It's going to be hard.
This is going to be a rough and tumble game, and it's going to be kind of one of those field goal, fumble touchdown, that kind of thing. Okay. Now we go against the Chargers. The Chargers game right after the Raiders game. So we go back-to-back divisional opponents.
Damn, that's crazy.
Okay. However, you're both at home.
Oh, wow. You're on the road for both of those?
No. We are at home.
Oh, you're at, okay. So you have home back-to-back home games against the
we're at home.
Got it.
And I see both of those games as being wins for my Denver Broncos. I see us beating you guys at home, which has been the traditional way that we've done things. And I see that there's a bit of momentum. So we got win, loss. So that's 1-1. And then we go win, loss. That's 2-2. And then I see 2 wins. So that puts us at 4-2. Now, that looks like we're in a promising season at that point. Oh my gosh, 4-2.
This is when the wheels start to come off a little bit.
Okay. Then we go against the New Orleans Saints. I actually see that as 5-2 for my Denver Broncos.
Yeah, I agree with you.
Okay. And then I see 6-2 because I think we go against the Panthers and I think we beat them too.
Oh yeah. Yeah,
Okay.
Panthers probably going to be the worst team in the league.
And this is where it goes wrong.
6-2, you guys are doing so well.
Then we go against the Ravens. We lose that one in a spectacular fashion. I actually think that will be a bit of a blowout.
Spectacular, yeah.
Yeah. And so not only do I see that as a loss, but I see that as a wake-up call for all these Broncos fans that you're going to hear online. And they're going to be chest beating.
AFC West division.
Okay. The answer is no. Okay. And then we're at the Kansas City Chiefs. We're going to lose that too. That puts us at 6-3.
Yeah.
Then we're playing Falcons. I think
you're 6-4. I think you're 6-4.
Sorry, 6-4. Then we're 7-4 because I do think we beat the Falcons.
Okay.
I do think we beat the Falcons. Then we're gonna lose to the Raiders at home, like we're playing the Raiders in Vegas. We will lose that game. Then we're gonna lose to the Cleveland Browns, because the Cleveland Browns are the Cleveland Browns, and we always lose to them because they are that damn good. Okay,
which is weird to say.
Yes, it is. I can't believe I said it out loud. So all of a sudden we're 6-2
to now 7-5.
Then we're 7-5. So we're right at that piece.
Yeah.
Now
on the brink.
Now we're at the bye week. 7-5.
When's your bye week? Week 13?
Week 14.
Week 14. Okay.
Then we're gonna play the Indianapolis Colts. We will lose that game.
Wow. Okay. You think you guys are gonna lose that game? All right. Do you think the Colts are gonna be competitive?
Yes.
Okay. They are in a semi-weak division minus the Texans, so
7-6. Then we play the Chargers at home. We're gonna lose that game. 7-7. Then we're gonna play the Bengals at home. We're gonna lose that game. 8-7.
7-8.
Or sorry, 7-8. Sorry. And then we're gonna lose to the Chiefs.
7-9. I know you're missing a game. 7-9. I think that's why I was confused, because you said you were 7-5 and then you had the bye.
I have us as 8-9.
8-9. Oh, okay. What was the other win you had leading up that last? You were at 7 wins for a while. What was the 8th one you guys got?
All right, so hold on. I got
Seahawks
a win versus Seattle.
Uh-huh.
A win versus the Bucks.
Mm-hmm.
A win versus the Raiders. A win versus the Chargers.
Mm-hmm.
A win versus the Saints. A win versus the Panthers. A win versus the Falcons.
I got 7 so far on that.
I have 8.
Did I miss? Wait, what? Am I tripping? Did I not hear you name off 7 teams?
No, I have us as an 8-9 team.
8-9. Okay, yeah. I mean that's kind of right around where I would say you guys would be. 9-8, 8-9. Those games can kind of go.
So I have us as an 8-9 team.
Okay.
I do believe that depending on how some of our rookies play, I have a fairly wide swing for the Denver Broncos this season, because there's just some things you can know and there's just some things you cannot know. And one of the things that I know is that I can look back at history and look at what my Broncos have done, and I expect them to prove it. They have not yet proven it to me yet. And so I need to see it. Now, Peyton overperformed where we should have been last year. And he got us to, a respectful record at least. Like, he got us to not being like a laughing stock at the very least. So good for him. Right. However, I see this is where the swing comes, which is we can be an 8-9 team, and I could see the upper limit being kind of like a 10-11 win team. Because I could see that Indianapolis Colts game going the other way potentially.
Yeah, that was one I definitely saw going
Okay.
potentially the other
I
way.
could also see a Chiefs game going the other way.
You guys finally did beat that
Because we beat them
streak.
last season as well, which means that we kind of have a bit of a blueprint in terms of how to kind of go about that.
And you
And
also have
so,
that out of your head of just like, oh my
yep,
God, we've lost however many
yep,
games to them now.
exactly. And then I also think that there is the potential that the Chargers still have to prove it in order to get out of that 5th
Oh yeah.
draft pick. And so there is the potential that we could sweep the Chargers if we make leaps forward and you guys are still building.
Yeah, if we don't make our expected jumps this year that I think we will have with Harbaugh and a completely new coaching staff, definitely you guys could absolutely sweep us. But I just think the way it's gone, given our history and even given the terrible head coaches we've had, no matter what, we just for whatever reason always find a way to split our games. You guys always take it. We always defend our home turf against each other is what I've come to find out.
But that's what I'm saying, right? Is that
yeah, absolutely.
If like you're talking, where are the coin flips?
Yeah.
Where is the, where does that exist? Like, where do those exist? I would typically agree with this, Biggie. I really would. The problem is, I have not seen enough from our blocking and our offensive line for me to start saying that we can defend against the Pittsburgh defense. I encourage anyone who's wanting to push back against my prediction for the Pittsburgh game to truly analyze the Pittsburgh defense. You're playing them week 2. This is not week 10. This is not week 11. This is not week 13, where you run the risk of like a litany of injuries. Odds are you're playing a relatively healthy Steelers team on defense, which means that you're dealing with a bunch of guys that are going to be full of piss and vinegar. They have an elite pass rushing team, which is not looking good for McGlinchey, who looked like an absolute turnstile last year. Ben Powers was holding like nobody's business, and Garrett Bowles got away with absolute freaking bloody murder in the crap that he was pulling last year. So that's 3 of our 5 starting projected linemen on the Denver Broncos.
And you're also playing a head coach that is just notorious for that team. You're going to see the best version of that team week in and week out.
And so this is the problem that I have with my Denver Broncos, which is we need to do better. Now, can Peyton turn it around? Can I be proven wrong because Peyton is now dealing with quarterbacks that can play his offensive scheme and system and all of those things? Yes, and yes. However, I'm being asked to project out. I'm being asked to look at what I've seen so far to date. I'm being asked to look at what I saw last year versus this year. Peyton outperformed the roster that he had last season. I'm projecting much of the same this season. However, I have question marks as to what teams he will outperform against. And one of those teams I think he might outperform against is the Colts. So if I had to pick a game that was going to flip based on my prediction, it would probably be the Colts and not the Steelers. And that's kind of where I'm at. So
I would agree with that.
Like, that's where I'm at. So, we go from 8-9 to 9-8. Right.
Yeah.
And that's kind of where I'd be thinking we're kind of landing. Like, that's the type of team that I think my Denver Broncos are going to be this year. And then I also think it also is dependent on 2 major factors for my team. 1, does Bo Nix start, yes or no? And then 2, when Bo Nix eventually does start, because he will, does he just kind of light the world on fire as a result? And,
yeah.
And these are coin flips. Like I don't care who you are. I don't care what kind of fanalist or analyst or pro you are. It is a question mark. And anyone that says otherwise is lying. 50% of all first-round quarterbacks fail outright.
And there was 6 taken.
And there
in
were
this
6
year's draft.
taken in the first round this year.
So by that logic, 3 of them are destined to fail.
3 of them are absolutely destined to not do well, and that is just a simple fact. So I'm sorry, but that's just the way things work. Stats bear that out. History bears that out. And if you want to deny what you've seen so far in the NFL, I don't know what to tell you, but you're wrong.
The only argument to that I have, and this is obviously an outlier, is the 2020 draft class, where 5 QBs got taken in the first 2 rounds. And you could argue that every team is happy with the QB they took, where they took them in that draft. I think the Packers are damn happy they take Love. I don't think the Eagles are upset they got Hurts with their second round. Chargers are definitely not upset. Bengals are definitely not upset. I mean, you could argue maybe the Dolphins are the only team, but you see that fan base kind of turn on Tua here and there. But I mean, the numbers speak for themselves. The dude's been productive. They've been to the playoffs the last 2 out of the 3 years. So I mean,
So I would argue that the Bengals have not yielded what they would have preferred from Joe Burrow.
That's true.
I would also argue that Tua has only looked good this last season, and he needs to show it again.
Mm-hmm.
I would agree that you're not upset with Herbert, but the problem is that your team has not done anything to help him.
Yeah.
Okay.
Hopefully this year.
Sorry, but not sorry about that comment.
It's facts.
And then
this team is hindered him.
It is what it is, my man. Sorry.
Mm-hmm.
And then as we start going down, Jordan Love is looking like he could be that dude, but he's got to show it a second year in order to actually say yes.
Right.
And so those are the only quarterbacks. So you got Jordan Love, which is a maybe. Right? He looked good last year, but can he do it again? And then Justin Herbert, your team is obviously happy with him, but as in terms of team success, you've not done well.
Right.
Tua is in the same position as Herbert.
Yeah.
Except I would argue even worse because he hasn't even looked nearly as good as Herbert.
Yeah.
Yet he was picked before him.
And he has the best wide receiver. Well, not a top 2 wide receiver in football in Tyreek.
Right. And then Joe Burrow has been in the league 4 years. And
only has 2 healthy seasons to show for it.
Only has 2 healthy seasons. Now, those 2 seasons have been great. So
and better than any of the other QBs.
Yes, good. Certainly justifies on paper at least why you probably took him for the first pick there. So I understand, but it still hasn't resulted in elite level team success
and
where
consistent
you would have
team success.
And consistent team success like Patrick Mahomes or some of these other players. I mean, I would also argue that the Ravens are probably they're not happy, but their team success has certainly been better with in my opinion from an opposing team looking at theirs. I would argue that their quarterback is Lamar is a more feared quarterback right now than Burrow.
I mean, yeah, he's got the personal accolades. He's a 2-time MVP. I will say though, the only thing that's going against Lamar is he's the only 2-time MVP in league history to never make it to the Super Bowl, let alone a conference championship game.
I agree,
so
but then
but
then on the flip side of that is, all right, what has he done from personal accolades perspective? I would say he's done pretty well when it comes to certain things like league leading rusher, league leading this, league leading that. It's like, so then at that point there, as odd as it is to say, then my question is to the head coach, so my man, what have you not done?
Yeah. I mean, it's for the Ravens specifically, it's very easy to just look back at all their playoff games and look like, well, here's where you went wrong. And a lot of it is attributed to play calling, especially this last playoff game against the Chiefs. It almost feels like they kind of let the Chiefs just win. I feel like we have yet to see the Ravens. It's almost like the Ravens, they get scared to run what has been working for their offense all season long. And it's like they don't want Lamar to get hurt. But what you have to realize is he's at his most dangerous when he's on his legs. That's when you the other team is like, oh shit, oh shit, oh shit, oh shit, we got to get him, because the minute he escapes out of that pocket, dude's a danger to score from anywhere on the field. You have to have that fear in the defense that you're playing, because they're just going to play him like a normal pocket passing QB. What game is he? Wait, what game is he talking? Oh, the Pittsburgh game.
What I'm saying is, I believe that the Pittsburgh defense is better than the Broncos offense. And trust me when I say this, and I will say this again, even when I'm proven wrong. If I'm proven wrong, I hope I'm wrong. But until I'm proven wrong, I feel very confident saying that right now.
Mm-hmm.
And so, and I also think it's important for us as Denver Broncos fans to look at how our teams are built. The AFC North are built to be a very gritty style team. The AFC West is more of a hybrid style team in terms of how we are built. Yeah. So, as an example, by all accounts, most people would call me an imposing person.
No.
I am from the North. I can be thrown out into the forest, and I will live and be just fine.
You'll come back.
I will come back healthy as an ox, and I'll be totally cool. I literally have it written in like my school thing to say, most likely to be thrown into the wilderness and survive and be completely fine. My picture is there. Okay. Now, that's the whole point, right? Which is, when you're built to be a gritty team, you then typically need another gritty team to punch you in the mouth and win.
And in that division, all four of them
are built like that.
Yep.
Right? That's exactly the point. And
yep.
so then the question is how does a gritty style kind of, I'm going to outgrind you as a general message, go against a team that is kind of neither a grinding team or a finesse team? You're kind of in the middle.
Mm-hmm.
And the Broncos did very well with being in the middle when Peyton Manning was our quarterback, because the dude's a mental genius. Yeah. Okay. Now the question is Nick's an ascending mental genius in the NFL? Because if he is, then I agree with you for sure. He will then start, and he will then surprise and shock the league by probably winning an extra 3 games atop of the ones that I already mentioned.
And if he goes if he goes 11-6, you guys said on the low end 8-9. He goes 11-6. That team, that's a playoff record if I've ever seen one. That's
exactly what I'm saying, right? I'm saying that, like, in my opinion, the Broncos have the ability to swing from like a 12 to 13 win season, and we can go as low as like a 5 or 6 win season.
Yeah, you guys have a really low floor and a very high ceiling.
And a really high ceiling, right?
Yep.
And the question is like, what players do well, what players get hurt, what players don't get hurt. Now, I think Sean Payton, naturally, because of his mental mindset and his ability to game plan, I think brings up the floor naturally for the team to like a 7 or 8 win season, just because he's just kind of that damn good.
Yeah.
Right. Like, we've kind of seen it last year. The Broncos sucked.
Right.
Like, we were awful. And on top of that, we had so many injuries last year but we still won 8 games.
In spite of all those injuries,
in spite of all of that stuff. I mean, that just goes to show your head coach, right? Now, I think everyone's gotten better. I think our divisional opponents have gotten better. I think we've made moves that our division has typically not made, which is not good for my Denver Broncos, because you hope that one of your teams just is an idiot, but none of them are.
And we all kind of hope it's the Chiefs collectively.
Yes, of course. Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
that's never going to happen. Yeah, I completely agree with that.
Yeah, and so that's where I'm at. And so if I'm wrong, cool. I'll admit when I'm wrong. I have no problem with that. Trust me, I'm wrong all the time. But I will say that I have a better track record than most at predicting where the Broncos are going to land, certainly better than mainstream media, and definitely better than all of the talking heads that you hear from Twitter and everywhere else. Because I am not sitting here trying to claim that the Broncos are the best thing since sliced bread. And that's what you typically hear from Denver Broncos media and other podcasters out there, is that they want to basically put their orange and blue glasses on and say, the Broncos have turned the corner, and this is why, because this rookie is going to show out to be the next Deion Sanders or Champ Bailey, or, goodness knows who else. And they go out there and they get either injured the first week or they suck.
Yeah.
So, no, we need to stop kidding ourselves. I do want to quickly go through the Vegas schedule real quick.
Oh, yes.
And kind of go through. So they have a gauntlet to start the season.
Yeah, they have the second place schedule, right? They finished second in our division this year.
Right, but it is brutal.
Eesh.
Okay, so I'm going to quickly just go through the first few games for the Raiders.
Okay.
They're at the Chargers.
Mm-hmm.
They're at Baltimore. And then they have 2 home games, Carolina and Cleveland. And then they're at Denver.
God damn.
That is a rough schedule.
You got probably the 2 toughest teams in the North, 2 divisional opponent games. The Panthers are in there, right? I think that should be a cakewalk for them.
The Raiders will win that. So at minimum, they're gonna, at the worst case scenario, they're gonna be 1-2.
Damn.
But I mean, I'm sorry, that is a rough schedule for the Raiders. That is a rough schedule. Yeah. And then it doesn't get that much better. Then they are Pittsburgh at home. Then they're at the Rams.
Okay. That's still a tough team, though.
And then they got KC at home. And then they're on the road against Cincinnati.
Damn, man.
I mean,
that's brutal. I mean, that's the second place schedule, though, and we're playing the AFC North this year, so.
Yeah, and so I have to say, for all of those Raiders fans that have been in our chat saying, are you kidding me? With another word inserted in there, which I can't say because my kids are in the next room. I agree. I agree.
Yeah.
That is rough. That is rough in terms of a schedule. Then you have your bye week, and then they go on the road to play Miami.
That's a tough one.
That's Miami used to not be a tough team.
Yeah.
I use the word used to. They are not an easy team anymore.
No. They're easy in the cold, and unfortunately for the Raiders and for the Dolphins, but it'll be semi-cold in Vegas, but nothing they're in Miami anyway, so that's out the window.
Miami's always warm.
Yeah.
And so that's not a factor at that point.
That's the only reason why Miami's scary, because they can potentially have the 1 seed, and then you don't have to go play in the cold. But that's all.
Right.
Yeah.
And then it's Denver at home.
Mm-hmm. Wrap that series up.
And then they're at Kansas City.
God damn, back-to-back divisional games.
So again, this entire first block of the season is not nice.
No.
It is just not nice.
That's the first 13 weeks?
Yeah. Yeah.
Damn.
And then they go at Tampa Bay.
That should be a win.
They have Atlanta at home.
Should be a win.
And then they have Jacksonville at home.
Should be a win.
And then they're at New Orleans, and then they got you guys to finish the season with the Chargers.
So they definitely have a rough start, but man, it does get easier that last month.
The last little bit becomes a little bit easier for the Raiders. I do think that they have the potential. So if they can weather that first 14
initial storm,
weeks, and come out with a
7
good
and
record,
7. Yeah, 7 and 7.
If they come out 7-7, or 8-7. If they come out 8-7, we should be collectively worried.
Oh, I agree. if they're winning that many games, and in the first 14, absolutely, because then that's assuming they've beaten some of either KC, the Ravens. Like, they would have definitely at least to have won 2 of their 3 divisional games against us, you guys, and the Chiefs, obviously. I mean, Steelers is not a tough. The Steelers is not a gimme. The Bengals is not a gimme. That entire division's not a gimme. So if they're coming out of that stretch, that first 13 weeks, they come out of that like 7-6, like at least 500 or maybe a game below 500. That you gotta start looking at the Raiders potentially making a playoff push, because that back half, those last like 5 games minus ours, I mean, those are pretty cakewalks. Tampa will give them some pause. Baker, and we saw them. They had some success last season, so I could definitely see that. But I just also think, with that defense, and they should absolutely win. Kind of almost sweep those last 4 games leading up to us.
Yeah, so I see the Raiders winning Tampa, Atlanta, Jacksonville, New Orleans, and frankly, I see them beating you guys at the last game of the season.
Yeah,
So I mean, that's what I'm saying, is that I think that if they can weather the storm of the first part of that season and either be even, or if they're a game above 500
with those last 5 to play,
then look out. Just look out, because then that means that the Raiders are kind of back at that point, right?
Oh, yeah. Well, and Pierce was you could look at that and be like, yeah, Pierce was the right hire.
Right.
Now looking 100%. On it after a full season.
100%. And so
that's worst case scenario for us as Broncos and Chargers fans.
Yeah, exactly. Now, I don't have the Chiefs schedule in front of me, but obviously it's going to be a gauntlet as well.
Yeah, a bunch of first place teams.
The Chiefs are basically playing all the top teams.
Here, let me see if I can pull it up for you really quick. All right.
I would love to say that I think that the Chiefs are going to suck, but they need to prove it to me that they're going to. I think the Ravens are probably going to beat the Chiefs in the first week of the season.
Wow. Okay, so you think they're starting off with a loss?
And I hope Alex is watching. And then, so based on what I think is correct, they start the season Baltimore and Cincinnati at home.
Mm-hmm.
I think Baltimore beats the Chiefs at home.
Okay.
I think the Bengals, if Burrow is back, and I mean like truly back, that'll be one of those last-minute field goal games. And Alex, I know you agree with me on that, because that's been his comment too. The Bengals and Chiefs has always been like, who gets the last possession? Right. And so there's a potential in my mind when I'm looking at this for the Chiefs to go 0-2 or 2-0.
Yeah.
And it's a coin flip, like literally, like, let's see what happens.
Right.
And then I think they go on a run. I think they beat Atlanta. I think they kind of go down that list.
Yeah.
I think the Chiefs lose to San Francisco at home. I think the Chiefs probably lose to the Raiders at home.
Which means they're coming out swinging against the Bucks, Broncos, and Bills.
Yeah, and I think that,
and the Panthers, because they're not losing to the Panthers.
No. And then again they're at Buffalo, which, like,
they own Buffalo. Let's be real.
They own Buffalo, but Buffalo's due for a win against the Chiefs.
We thought it was going to happen in the postseason, man. And the thing is, like, Buffalo got worse. Like, I just don't see a world where Buffalo beats KC. Buffalo at its absolute peak couldn't dethrone KC. And then they played KC when KC had arguably its worst season offensively, and they still couldn't beat them. And it's like,
I need to dig into the Bills a little bit more. I go to Buffalo a couple times a year normally. I'm about 3, almost 4 hours north of Buffalo, where I live.
Oh, okay.
No, 5 hours north of Buffalo. Yeah, 5. Um, I love that northern part of New York. Like that. That's they're great people down there.
Mhm.
Generally speaking, there's a few weirdos, but aside from that, like we get along.
Right.
Um, and Buffalo in particular, I fit in quite well there. Um, it's a rough and tumble kind of area. I fit in just fine. I uh, I am basically an American. Like literally, I am basically an American.
Yeah.
I live by the Constitution of the U.S. in my day to day life here in Canada. Um, so
You're an honorary
I'm
American.
an honorary American
Yep.
for all intents and purposes. And so I get along quite well when I go there, and we kind of have very similar values in most of the kind of small communities throughout northern New York. But it's really, really interesting when I look at Buffalo, and I haven't spent the time just yet. I will actually in the next couple weeks. I want to look at the draft picks. I need to see what they did to improve their team, because of I got like 3 or 4 like great friends of mine that are like they have Bills tattoos like up and down their arms.
Oh, damn.
Yeah, like super fans beyond super fans. And so with respect to them, I need to make sure that I dig into the Bills so I'm not speaking out of turn and pissing them off. But I need to make sure that I've analyzed their team and given them the due diligence, because even at their worst in the last few years, they've still been one of the top 10.
Absolutely. But I also think a lot of that is because of their defense. Their
Sure.
defense has consistently been a top 10 unit. And when you have somebody like Josh Allen, who is notorious for turning the ball over, having that defense is necessary, and it's crucial in that team's success. I think now, because they did lose some pieces on that defensive side of the ball too, it's going to be very interesting to see how that team alters because of it. I think they're going to be extremely more run heavy. We saw that kind of in the back half of the last season when they went on that little bit of a run to win that division, and ultimately, the Dolphins kind of fell apart, but the Bills did, to
Was
their
there a pun in
credit.
that?
No, but now that I thought about it, I just realized it. Didn't even think about it. No pun intended. But yeah, I think it's gonna be they're gonna be a almost similar to the Chargers in a way where they're gonna be a run first team. They're gonna they're gonna run with Allen as well, and I think they're gonna play defense and limit. um yeah, I think there's going to be some growing pains with that and shifting to that new system, because I mean, dude, Allen just turns the ball over too much, man. We saw that in the playoff game against the Chiefs. That's ultimately what lost them the game. It's just turnovers coming in the most inopportune times. Week 1 last year against the Jets, 3 interceptions to the same player. Like, you would think after the first one, like, all right, maybe I shouldn't go to him. You'd think after the second one, okay, I definitely shouldn't go to him. You had to throw 3 before you realized, I probably shouldn't target this DB. Like, come
Right.
on, man.
So here's the problem I have with that, and this is the thing we don't know. One, is that the offensive coordinator trying to give his quarterback the confidence by telling him to do the same thing or something similar, or is that the quarterback making that decision? We don't know the answer to that question. Like, we just don't. Like, this is the problem, right? Is that we don't know A versus B. And
Right.
so, as fanalists, we can always make these comments. We can always kind of say, look at the dude, he did the thing, and blah, 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 blah. And it's like,
Right.
sure, good for you. But then you find out like 10 years later, where Alan comes out with his like biography or something. Like, the OC told me I had to do the thing because of this, that, and the other thing, and I didn't want to, and here's why. And so here's like, we just don't know. So the
Yeah.
question that we need to know the answer to is, we saw Dayball and Allen do some pretty spectacular things.
Right.
Okay. Now, Dayball as a head coach has not necessarily been nearly as good as he was as an offensive coordinator. However, we saw what an offensive coordinator that recognized kind of the right things to do with a quarterback that he had at his disposal do very well. And we saw Josh Allen also do very well. So then the question is this really a Josh Allen problem, or is this a head coach and coaches that are surrounding Josh Allen saying, hey, you're a really big dude that has a really strong arm that can do all of these things, but now we want you to do more. And it's like, well, what happens if that's a limit that he has that you're trying to push, but then as a coach, you're too stupid to recognize that you can't do it?
Right. I mean, do you think McDermott is the right coach for Buffalo?
Yes.
I do as well. And so then that becomes a completely separate issue.
My problem isn't McDermott. My problem is
the OC.
Is the general manager and the ownership group. I have some questions surrounding who lets who make decisions. And as a Broncos fan, and just for the record, for all of you joining, there was some recent news that came out this past week, like doozy, like as in like this guy was right kind of news, of the head coaching and drafting positions that we saw the Denver Broncos make. It was confirmed by a Broncos insider that the vast majority of the crappy moves that were made by the Denver Broncos were pushed for and overwritten by John Elway. And so the question then becomes is who's the talking head over in Buffalo? Who's the guy that who's overriding McDermott? Who's telling McDermott what to do and how to do it? We just don't know. So Robert, with that in mind, I'm going to ask you to kind of go a little bit deeper into what your thoughts are on the Chiefs.
Yeah.
Just give me 1 sec. I'm going to be back in just a minute, and then we'll talk about it.
For sure. Yeah. So, kind of looking over at the Chiefs schedule here. I mean, it's like we said earlier, it's a first place schedule. So, they're going to be facing the best of the best. You start off with back-to-back AFC North division opponents in the Ravens and the Bengals. I mean, that's just such a hard smack right out of the gate. I definitely would not be surprised seeing them go 1-1 in that, or possibly 0-2. Although it's tough to see the Chiefs it's tough to see a world where the Chiefs lose back-to-backs. I think in the entire Mahomes era, they've only ever lost back-to-back 4 times. So that's tough. Got the Falcons in Atlanta. That should be an easy win. Chargers at home. I think we split with them, and we're at home in this game, so I'll say we win this one, but that'll come back to bite us in the primetime game. That's usually where the Chiefs will have our number at least, but they're usually close games. So then you got the Saints, Niners, Raiders. Again, Saints game should be a win. Niners game is going to be very tough. Raiders will be a tough game. Then you got the Bucks and the Broncos. I mean, Buccaneers, like I said, they have some talent. What's going on, Rick? Man, yeah, you just got me today. No, I'm kidding. Rich is here, stepping away for a minute, but Alex, unfortunately, had a prior arrangement, wouldn't be able to join us. So yeah, you're getting just us two today. And then kind of finishing off with the schedule. I mean, you got Bills, Panthers. Panthers should be an easy win. Raiders, again, you play the Raiders within like 6 weeks, so that should be interesting to see how that goes. Another back-to-back division game with us and the Raiders. And then you finish off with the Browns, the Texans, the Steelers, and the Broncos as the final week of the season.
So here's a hot take. If the Chiefs are not healthy,
hey, man,
that last gauntlet that you just listed,
Browns, Texans, Steelers, Broncos,
has the potential of having the Chiefs lose out pretty much every single one of those games.
Yeah. I mean, and hey, they start tough, man. Ravens Bengals is a tough first 2 games to have in the season. and then you have the Niners thrown in there with a back-to-back Niners Raiders. I mean, hey, it's you get a first place schedule for a reason, but man, and we say this every year, but it could be, there's definitely some precedent for the Chiefs potentially having a down year. Once again, though, it's the Chiefs, so I hate saying that.
The whole point is they need to prove it, right? Like they need to prove that they've regressed based on the schedule and whatnot in order to prove it. And right now they have not yet shown that they are not going to win out or not do well. So the key here is, can they stay healthy? Can Mahomes maintain his level of play? Yeah. Which is I'm not saying it's a question mark, but every quarterback has ebbs and flows, and so the question is, can he continue the ebb and not have the flow in this season? And then, you have some other key pieces here, which is, the Chiefs really need other players to step up. Like Chris Jones is like all world talent at the NFL level. However, he's not getting any younger, so he needs other folks to step in the interior to kind of learn from him and do well. And they've I don't say struggle per se, but they have certainly not replaced him or found someone that can kind of step in and help in the interior of that line. They've got great DNs and outside backers in a reasonably great complement, but the reason for the wins is not the outside backers and the other guys. It's because Chris Jones is just that damn good, and
just elevates everybody else.
Yeah, he just makes everyone look great, right?
Yeah.
And then the other piece there is Travis Kelce. The Chiefs desperately need to find another guy to match his production.
Don't think you're going to find it in one. That might be something you replace with multiple guys to emulate that Travis Kelce effect, but let's be real, man. They're not getting that back.
The tight end position to get another guy that can spell Kelce to at least get close, right? Like I'm not saying they're going to be able to fully replace him, because that is going to be a tough thing to do.
That's borderline impossible.
Antonio Gates has never been fully replaced for the Chargers. Shannon Sharp has never been fully replaced for the Denver Broncos. There was a flash in the pan with Julius Thomas where he had a whole bunch of touchdowns, but he was just kind of like a one-hit wonder, one-hit wonder kind of deal. That's the point, right? Like you need to find the dude to replace the dude, or at least kind of almost replace the dude. And no one has been able to do it. So now what?
That they're going to be after this season. Well, he signed on for what, 2 more years? Kelce is 2 more years. Yeah. So it's going to be very different, I think, because they just have him and Mahomes, Kelce and Mahomes. They just have that rapport that it's almost unteachable. Like they just have that wavelength where it's like Kelce just knows when a play breaks down and he sees like Mahomes.
He's a former quarterback.
Yes, he just knows what to do and when to do it at the most perfect perfect moment, and then you see the play unfold and you're like, how the hell is Travis Kelce that wide open? What is the coverage? When in reality it's like
quarterback.
Yeah.
No, that is your answer. He is a former quarterback.
Yeah. So was Staley, though, and we saw how that worked out.
No, but the thing is that, like, Kelce, this is my general take on Kelce. He presents as a retard, but is actually smart.
That's fair. I was not expecting that. Yeah, you're pretty much right on. He's kind of like a. This is gonna sound terrible. He's kind of like a more professional version of Gronk, and
Yeah.
that's not saying a lot because he's still in and of himself not as
No, but
professional.
but Gronk did the same thing.
Right.
Gronk
Yeah.
presented as a Neanderthal who couldn't tell his rear end from a hole in the ground.
Mm-hmm.
But if you actually saw him play football, Gronk was a very, very smart dude.
Yeah. He
Like
had
when
one of
it
the
comes
greatest
to
quarterbacks of
football.
all time to help him, but yes,
No, but
I think.
when you watched him run routes and kind of just work through coverages, Gronk was no dummy.
Oh no.
Okay, like he just wasn't a dumb guy.
Mhm.
Although you see him in interviews, like, "Hey man, let's go out and party." and
Yep.
and and that's exactly the whole point, right? Which is
He
like
was like a frat boy.
he's a frat boy retard who's actually smart.
Yes. Oh man. Gronk, if you're watching, man, great player, great player.
But here's the thing: I actually like Gronk. I think he's a
Oh
great
yeah,
player.
I do too. Gronk's
Great
great.
too. But
Yeah.
like, let's put it this way: Gronk was the only reason that, he was the only reason that made the Patriots watchable.
Oh yeah, I agree with that. Yeah. He was just a freak of nature.
Yeah, he the dude was insane.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it was as not crazy as it sounds, but look at every. I don't want to say every. Look at a majority of the quarterbacks that had long, sustainable championship success. Almost all of them had that dude at tight end. Mahomes had Kelsey. Brady had Gronk and Hernandez. Elway had Sharp. I mean, Rivers never won anything or did anything as far as championship success, but they had sustained success even in the regular season when he had Gates.
With Gates.
Yeah, I mean the Chiefs had sustainable success when they had Gonzalez, and even when he went to Atlanta, they were still pretty good. I mean, the Chiefs were doing good; they just weren't winning anything once they got to the postseason. But
Yes.
they were doing well enough to get there, and he was
Yes.
giving them that success there. And I mean, even you see it with Lamar and Mark Andrews. Like it's quite evident having that guy at tight end is almost becoming a kind of a necessity for these star young QBs. And I think
Sure.
we're going to see that potentially play out with Stroud in Houston because he doesn't have that guy. Yeah, Tony Romo, Jason Wynn, another one. Stroud doesn't have that tight end in Houston. But we're going to see how that success plays out this year without having that. Because I think Ferguson's a good red zone threat, but he's not, a consistent, like, hey, I can go to you at third down, move the chains for me, like, you're my guy.
But
so
this is my point. This is exactly my point, Robert. The GM's vision for the team is critical. The head coach's tight end for the team is critical. If the two are not on the same page, they're doomed.
Yeah.
And on top of that, today's NFL is not the same as it was back when Elway and Sharp were playing. Today's NFL is not the same as even when Rivers and Gates were playing.
Yeah.
It's just not. It's not even close.
Yeah.
The whole point here is the reason why Mahomes and Kelsey have been so successful is because of the offensive rules that have been put in place that allow for a larger bodied, intelligent, even though he plays himself off as a tard, tight end in Kelsey to come out and kind of know what's happening before it happens.
Right.
And that's what you're seeing, like literally in real time. Like you've seen this year over year with KC. You're like, I don't understand. It's like, I do. The dude understands that when 4 plays ago, they ran another play that sent the safety that way, and they went that way. that the safety's going to bite that way again. And so he's going to make it look like he's going the same direction, but then fake and then go the other direction and be like literally wide open. Right? Because he's not thinking like a tight end. He's thinking like a quarterback. He's thinking like an offensive coordinator. He's thinking chess, not checkers.
Right.
And Brock Bowers has yet to be seen to be that dude at the NFL level. Mm-hmm. Does he have the physical gifts to be that guy? Yep.
Absolutely. Check, check, and check.
Now, does he have the mental ability to be that guy? We don't know yet.
Still remains to be seen.
We don't know yet. The NFL is a different beast. However, if you have the physical gifts and you're even halfway decent at the mental side, whoo, good luck.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it's going to be very interesting, to say the least, to see how the Chiefs address that departure of an all-time great. And the hole that he will leave, and honestly, in a weird way, it's going to be kind of like two departures of two greats at the same time, because I feel like Jones and Kelsey are going to align right there. Maybe not the same year, but it'll be almost like one after the other. When one retires, the other one will follow very soon after. So yeah, if there was ever a time to maybe think, will the Chiefs become human? Will the Chiefs ever come down to earth from this insane high they've been on ever since Mahomes has been there? It'll be when Jones and Kelsey leaves. And if even at that point the Chiefs are still just undeniably the best team, then I got nothing. I got nothing. It's Mahomes is just the greatest player of all time, and that's it. Because you lose your best defensive player arguably in franchise history. You lose your best tight end. I don't want to say offensive player because obviously Mahomes, but you lose your best pass catcher in franchise history in a year or two of the same. I don't know how any team comes back from that, but if any team's going to do it, it's going to be the Chiefs.
Yeah, I agree. So, ladies and gentlemen, we've had some interesting stuff occur this week. We've had some Broncos news with Elway and some other stuff. We're going to cover a little bit more in detail next week on that, because I want to actually dig a little deeper into that for my Denver Broncos. We've covered the schedule release, which has been pretty interesting. If you're a Raiders fan, I want to hear from you. What are your thoughts on your schedule? Leave those comments down below, both during and after this video, right down below that way. If you're a Broncos fan, what do you think of our schedule? It's going to be interesting. And obviously, Robert, you have some interesting stuff with regards to your schedule as well. Yes. Some tough games, some easier games given your record and stuff like that. The question is, can you capitalize? And the Chiefs have a tough schedule, but that's to be expected when you win a Super Bowl. And so, frankly, I have no sympathy for you whatsoever.
Make it harder.
But let's see what happens. Let's go from there. And ladies and gentlemen, we're going to have an interesting show for you next week where we're going to kind of pull a lot of this together. We're going to pull the mini camps, draft, and all those things and kind of combine them all to start talking about what our teams are starting to look like and converging to, because that's really what we're all about, which is what do we think our teams are going to do. We're going to talk about the schedule and all that kind of stuff, and we'll see what happens. But anyways, with that in mind, guys, where the West Side is the best side, and we have lots to discuss. Trust me, lots to discuss. We will see you next week. Peace!
Fast lane when I pass in the street, bag of money in the passenger seat. Simcoe's been asking for me on the road from the west to the east. Way up, I might never come down, cause the coast racking up the flight miles. So high, I might never come down, so what, this is my lifestyle. Wait a minute.